And with us today from SMTC, helping to host and run the show here today, are Megan Vitale, our principal planner, Tom Bardenett, senior transportation planner, and then our behind the scenes Andrew Frazier, who is helping to keep us live on YouTube. So with that, we also have a couple guest speakers, and I'll introduce them shortly. I do want to just go over a couple of what you can see on the screen right now is the beginning of our agenda. Welcome and introductions. That's right now. I'm going to go over a couple of meeting controls, meeting expectations, typical Zoom etiquette. We've got a couple of staff updates from SMTC from the work that we've been doing. We've got some member agencies with us today, and we'll ask them to share any ongoing work that they have that's related to bicycle and pedestrian activity, as well as transit. We also have Deputy Supervisor from the town of Manlius, Sarah Bollinger, with us today. She's going to talk with us about the comprehensive plan that the town has undergone and the process there, and some of the items that relate to active transportation. So we are grateful to her for being here today. I'll follow that up with a little bit of a discussion about a project that SMTC is working on for the villages of Manoa, Fayetteville, and Manlius. We have a bicycle and pedestrian connection study going on there. Let's see, rest of our agenda. Then we'll have time for question and answer and discussion. Any questions you might have for about the town of Manlius comprehensive plan and any of the other member agencies and any projects that SMTC is working on. We do ask that you hold your questions until we get to that part of the agenda so that we can get through all the items, and then we'll have time for that, for question answer and some open discussion, and then meeting close. And we will wrap up by 5 no matter what. So you will not be here later than that. And if we end a little sooner, got a little extra time. So one of the things I just wanted to point out very, very briefly, I think most folks at this point in time are used to working with Zoom. This slide right here just talks a little bit about where you can find your mute and unmute and start and stop video. For our meetings here, we start everyone on mute, and then at the end, if you have questions, you can either physically raise your hand, or you can raise your hand using the reactions button down below, and we will call on you. It helps to cut down on background noise and keep us moving and keep everything running nice and smoothly. So let's see. As far as meeting controls, if you're calling in and you can't see this slide, what you need to do, if you need to speak during the meeting, for example, during question and answer, you want to raise your hand through your phone by pressing *9 on your keypad, and then *6 unmutes you. So hopefully, I don't know if any folks joined through telephone, but okay, Megan's saying no, so we don't have to worry about that right now. If for some reason you do need to join by telephone and you have questions, you can go to our website and check that out. Participant conduct, I don't read through all of this every time we meet, but we just ask that everyone be respectful of everyone else, and our guest speakers, of course, and everyone will get a turn to speak. So with that, I am going to start on our staff updates. Let's see, I've got a couple slides here. I'm going to try to run through quickly because I'm sure we're more interested in hearing from our guest speaker than hearing me drone on and on. But I wanted to just point out that SMTC has got 4 projects that we are wrapping up right now. They are listed on the screen in front of you. One of the things that we wanted to make sure we pointed out today is that our Natural Route 11 mobility study, that draft report is currently on our website. That's online. And it's open to public comment, and those comments are due to us by April 5th. And there's a link there you can see if you go to the smtcmpo.org website and you go to the news section. That's open till April 5th if you want to provide any comments. We've got our Westvale Plaza project where we recorded presentations of some of the recommendations and land use discussions. If you want to check any of those out, those are on our website, or you can check our YouTube channel for those. And we're also in the process of wrapping up the West Side Trail for the city of Syracuse and the Safe Routes to School guidebook. Both of those projects will finish up next month. As far as ongoing projects, another project related, bicycle pedestrian related project that we have been working on is in the Brewerton Trail feasibility assessment. And our goal of that project is to improve options to walk and ride a bike to Brewerton's riverfront and business district from surrounding neighborhoods and rural areas. We are working on a document right now that's outlining the existing conditions. Community Streets is another project that we've got going on. Project applications for that were due February 1st, and we're collaborating with Adapt CNY on that project. And they are finishing up the selection process and going to choose 3 projects to fund for this pilot year. And they're good projects. And if you have questions about that, we can chat a little bit later. Those selected projects will be required to present their ideas to their TNT sector prior to installation. And the idea is that those installations will occur over summer 2024. Some of the new projects that are coming online next month as part of our new UPWP year, which is our Unified Planning Work Program year, that outlines the projects that we're going to work on in the coming year, and in some cases coming 2 years. We've got a Route 57 complete street study that we're going to be working on behalf of Onondaga County, where we'll be reviewing and prioritizing complete streets. We also have Safe Routes to School support that we're completing, that we will work on for Onondaga County. It's going to be similar to the project that we have worked on for the city, except this one will focus on the suburban districts. And so we're looking to engage and educate school and municipal leaders about safe routes to school opportunities in suburban communities. Some other new projects that we are working on fall under the project management assistance title, I guess we could call it. We're going to be working with Onondaga County on their Safe Streets for All action plan. The county was awarded funding through some competitive Federal Highway Administration program, through a Federal Highway Administration program. That's the Safe Streets for All action plan. And then the city was also awarded a Reconnecting Communities pilot program. And that one is going to look at the creation of safe ped bike public transportation connections along multiple east and west routes in the south side of Syracuse. And so both the city and the county, on their respective awards of these grants, have asked SMTC to assist them with scope development, management of a consultant, putting out the request for proposals for a consultant, and SMTC will also help provide data and then assist with the public engagement for both of those efforts. So again, those will start up. Our new program year starts April 1, so we'll start to get the ball rolling on those next month as well. And then the next thing, Tom, I'm going to ask you, if you don't mind unmuting for just a second, and if you don't mind giving a brief little overview of what's going on with our Metropolitan Transportation Plan.
Yep. So our Metropolitan Transportation Plan, formerly known as the Long Range Transportation Plan, is required to be updated at least every 5 years. So right now we've just kickstarted our effort for this upcoming edition, which will be completed by the end by September 2025. So one thing that we're doing right now is seeking public engagement opportunities. We have a website up. If you scan this QR code or go to our website at MTP 2050, there you'll find as we get different public engagement events scheduled, we'll be updating that website with those on there. There's a video online just kind of explaining what this is and kind of the big questions that we're looking to answer, and then a public survey as well. We're looking for different opportunities to get out into the community and engage with people. We have a few things scheduled right now. We're trying to hit up a lot of the TNT sectors in the city of Syracuse. We're trying to go to farmers markets, both in the city and in the surrounding towns and villages. So if there's places that or events that are might be good for us to get out to, please let us know. We're really looking to just talk to people about the future of our transportation network. But yeah, I would say go to the website first, but then feel free to email us with any ideas you have, and please take our survey.
All right, Tom, thank you very much. I appreciate that. So let's see now. Now what we're gonna do, I'm gonna get back here. And hopefully, there we go. Okay, so now what we like to do is have our member agencies just provide a quick little update on any bicycle pedestrian related projects that you have going on, or even some things that that you think might be coming in the future. And so we just use this opportunity to kind of check in with everyone on what's going on and keep everyone informed. So let's see what we've got here. Julie Baldwin with the New York State Department of Transportation. She's a senior transportation analyst. If you don't mind unmuting, oh, you've already unmuted it, and can just give us some updates from your world, that would be great.
Sure. So
Thanks.
a lot of the things I have today are kind of things I've updated you guys on before, but are still in progress.
That's okay.
So we are working on a round of the Transportation Alternatives Program, congestion mitigation and air quality program, and carbon reduction program. They're all similar things that allow for like mobility, multimodal improvements, alternative transportation, bike ped type projects, or things to reduce emissions. And so we did that solicitation last fall, and the deadline for the applications was January 9th. So we had several from your MPO area and other counties in our region. The rating teams, which included some folks from SMTC, so thanks. We were wrapping up work on that in January. Let's see, January and February was the rating teams. And now we've sent recommendations and scores down to our main office in Albany for review. So that's, we're hoping award announcements late spring, but maybe early summer. Usually they take a little longer than we expect. So that's it for that one. And ongoing, I mentioned before, the State Fairgrounds got a grant to do improvements near the gate entrance along State Fair Boulevard. And as part of that, they're going to be adding sidewalks in there, rerouting the Empire State Trail so it doesn't go into the fairgrounds, but instead goes around the fairgrounds. We've had some issues with times when the gates were locked and no one could get through that section. So it'll be going around on State Fair Boulevard to Bridge Street and connecting up that way. So that's in design now. Not much to show yet for that. And then the third thing is NYSDOT and Syracuse just got a grant for reconnecting communities again. So that was in the paper maybe a week and a half, 2 weeks ago. We got $180 million, and that's going to help fund some of the complete streets components related to the community grid for 81. So that's just starting.
Great. Thanks, Julie.
Yep.
Got a lot of exciting things coming down the pipeline here. All right, let's see. We'll move on. I saw Kevin. So Kevin Busa is a transportation planner with the City of Syracuse Department of Public Works. Excuse me. So Kevin, if you wouldn't mind sharing an update, that would be great.
Yeah, thanks, Danielle. Thanks for joining everybody. The quick City of Syracuse transportation planning update last week. You probably saw we put out a press release. VO is back, our rideshare micro mobility program here, and Syracuse is back. I have some data from the 2023 season. We had over 430,000 rides in the city of Syracuse. That's equivalent to over 700,000 miles ridden. And we've also given out, out of those 430,000 rides, there were about 3,700 violations. So the majority of the rides did end without violations. So that's just some quick recap of the VO program in itself. The first year, which was 3 years ago now, we started with about 300 units on the road. 2 years ago, it went up to 600. We doubled in size, and now last season we are up to about 1,000 units. So it's steadily grown every single year. I think Paul from VO has been on these calls in the past, and he's just a great community asset. He's really running this program so that we can do that kind of expansion every year. Another thing to note for that program is VO just signed a contract also with Centro last year. So our service area is growing, which is a good thing for everybody. So it's not just the city of Syracuse boundary anymore. It's actually growing out to, potentially the state fairgrounds and things just outside the city. So, those people where they're trying to get to the grocery store on James Street and, they just can't get over that city line and things like that. We're adapting so that, the people that are using this for those type of services can really get to those destinations right outside the city as well. Another thing on DPW's standpoint is obviously speeding, trying to curb some speeding in the city with speed humps. That program is continuing. We take data for every single speed hump before and after and publish a report. So that's going to be on our website shortly for last year's season. But we will continue to put in speed humps to curb some of those speeding issues in neighborhoods. Striping projects are coming up again. It's that time of the year. I will be attending TNT meetings in every district to talk about, the roads that are getting new striping, whether that be lane, reductions, bike lanes, things like those type of items, just with paint and things like that. So our last thing is municipal sidewalk program. Again, every single year we're expanding that as well. First year we did about 3. Second year we did about 8 miles. And last year we did about 12.5 miles. So we do realize obviously there's a long way to go on that. But we are every single year, putting more funding, putting more efforts into, really putting a dent into our sidewalk program. The 2 new things that I can kind of give you information on the horizon, but don't have a lot to report today about. Vision Zero is a big one. Obviously, safety for pedestrians and bicycles in our community is a big thing. So the city is, committed to a Vision Zero plan and hiring consultants to come up with that plan and kind of implement over the next couple years, couple seasons. And then the last thing to note is just, I think everyone here has probably seen it in the news, but speed cameras in school zones, really putting an emphasis on curbing some of that speeding around schools and, our most popular or, that demographic that really needs attention of curbing the speeding, protecting children walking to school, right? And I think that goes with a little bit of Danielle's mention of Safe Routes to School program and things like that, just trying to put an emphasis on protecting, students around schools and walking and biking and being able to get to school safely. So probably next couple meetings, I'll be able to share more. Thank you.
Great. Thanks. Thank you, Kevin. Really appreciate that. And since we were just talking about VO a little bit, and I think, Bren, you might be able to share some information from Centro or whatever you can share. That would be great. We'd appreciate hearing from you next. So Bren Dice is Senior Director of Planning and Capital Projects with Centro.
Thanks, Danielle.
Sure.
Yeah, you teed me up for that, Kevin. So we are super excited. Actually, in 2022, Centro entered a contract with VO, and the idea was that we're the ones that know where the city boundaries are, where the municipal boundaries are. When you're out on your bike and you're out in a car, you don't. Most of the public, I've been a planner for a long time, so I still see them right in my head, but most of the public doesn't see those lines on the ground, those imaginary lines that we know are there. So how do we help our community complete those rides so that we don't see those, the bikes lined up there on Thompson Road on Erie Boulevard, because that's where the city boundary is. So last year we expanded to OCC's campus. We were super excited. Actually, we see about 5,000 VO rides a month headed out and around OCC's campus. So that's awesome. This year we have expanded to the east side. So just like Kevin was talking about those grocery stores, that was important to us to give people more access to food options. So on the east side, we have connected the Walmart in East Syracuse is now within the boundary. The Wegmans in DeWitt is now within the boundary. And also because we got a request and we were excited to expand it a little bit further, the DeWitt Jamesville Library is in the boundary as well. So you can now travel from the city to all of those locations, kind of inside that 481 loop there on the east side. We're also having conversations about our next expansion, and we're looking at, we're chatting with the county about what that might look like on the northwest side coming soon. So yay that we are expanding, seeing more vehicles out there and being able to expand that ride pretty consistently. So more to come in 2024.
That is awesome. That's great news. Thanks. Thanks for sharing that.
Yes, ma'am. We're
Yay. Yeah. Let's see. The other person that that we are going to get a brief update from, her mic isn't working, so Megan is going to share this. So Megan from our office is going to share this, but Adriana Savage is program coordinator for public health education in the Healthy Communities Initiative from the Onondaga County Health Department. And so Megan has a brief update to share on behalf of Adriana.
Yeah, so very brief. She just said her mic isn't working, so wanted everyone to know we are working with the regional market to support pedestrian infrastructure within the market, and they are very excited to support that. So that's from County Health. So
okay, great.
Adriana, if you want me to say anything else, just send me a message or send it to the whole group. So
yeah, thank you, Adriana, for that. Okay, wonderful. And so if we have questions about any of our member agency updates, we'll we can get to those after our next presentations. So thank you to everyone for sharing that with us. And so what we have next is I introduced her very briefly earlier, but Sarah Bollinger from the town of DeWitt, she is the deputy supervisor. She's going to share with us, the town of Manlius. I misspoke there. She will discuss the town's recently completed comprehensive plan and process and how it relates to active transportation. So let's see, Sarah, I'm going to stop sharing my screen. Then you can share yours. And when you are ready, you can go ahead and take it away. Let's see.
Okay. Good afternoon, everybody. I am going to speak with you about the Town of Manlius Comprehensive Plan. We did include an active mobility component within that. The process was extensive, and we included a lot of different ways of getting community input. Just for some context for this, we did begin the plan during the time of COVID. So it was challenging to get community input. And so we tried a lot of different things. So what I'm going to talk about today is a little bit about that context, the areas of interest that we identified, bicycle, pedestrian, and public transportation, and then eventually some recommendations. So the first part was because we were trying to get as much community input as possible during a time when there were no sort of street pop-ups and ways to talk to people, and nobody was going to the mall, and it just was a really awkward time. We tried a number of different things, and I'm sort of sharing this, many of you are planners, is that we discovered a lot of different ways where we could engage people through different things. So the listening sessions were essentially Zoom sessions where the focus was on somebody with some expertise to share. So relative to this group, for example, we did a Zoom with the Erie Canal program. So we had parks there, the Erie Canal people were there. And so they just gave an overview of, this is what the canal has, this is what it does, this is who runs it, kind of thing. So just an informational piece. We did study groups that were very intensive. There were multiple sessions with multiple people and guest experts speaking. So that was a much more intensive effort. We did focus groups that were just with different populations, older people, younger people, that kind of thing. We did some interviews, we did some surveys, and then the traditional process for a comprehensive plan is we did these community workshop open house things where people wander around and look at poster board. So we did those too, but we did all these other things before we ever got to the poster board meetings. And then we did the public hearings that are required. So this was all these different ways that we tried to engage with the public. One of those focus groups was on the bicycle and pedestrian mobility. So we had a specific discussion group just on this topic. About 15 people participated, and we did use a survey tool, which turned out to be a really cool way to get the conversation going. So again, this is a technique that some of you might choose to use as well. So we asked people, this slide is what were their biggest concerns. They were concerned about safety, and they were concerned about connectivity. And I want to say, in terms of our comprehensive plan in general, connectivity was one of the main themes. You probably know Manlius has 3 villages. And so there was this whole thing around trying to get from one village to the other through the town. And that whole thing, which you're going to talk about in a few minutes, but that was definitely a theme that people said, I just wish I could connect, or I could connect to Green Lakes, or I could connect to the Erie Canal. Like, a lot of it was just around connectivity. So that was a real theme of the whole plan. So these are the suggestions that the focus group came up with. They definitely felt like there was a safety issue around motorists not understanding that bicycles are allowed to be in the street. So we talked a lot about, and I think Kevin spoke earlier about painting, just having the green pavement and things like that, that were there ways that we could make it more obvious to motorists that other people were allowed to be here. So that was a lot of what people talked about. And then also the safe routes to school, which you already mentioned. One of the things that we kind of identified in that group was we didn't really have necessarily good data. Now, some of you probably have much better data than what we had, but that was an area where we felt like this is an area where SMTC or some of the others of you could really help by just providing municipalities with the data about their communities so that we could make decisions based on what's really going on and not just sort of hypotheticals. And that was the second bullet too, is we believe that there's more information, particularly with cyclists, where we could get into where people are really going and not just where. So I'll give you an example. If you go to any pedestrian oriented place like a college campus, someone has made sidewalks and there is some trail across the grass that everybody walks on where there is no sidewalk. So the idea is, where are people really going? And then how could we make those routes safer, even though it wasn't the route we thought they were going to take? So that was something we thought would be helpful to do. And then we really emphasized the collaboration component because, as was mentioned just earlier, people don't know where the municipal lines are. So having a sense of that, we as the planners need to make those lines invisible, because it doesn't make sense to anybody else that those lines are there. So we asked people using this extremely cool software where they thought we should have sidewalks. So people could just drop a pin to where they thought we should have sidewalks. And you can see it's heavily along the area where the villages are, which makes sense. But it's also that connectivity between the villages was where people thought. We also did a thing on cycling, was where should there be cycle paths. And we also asked them where there should be off-road amenities for cyclists. So this again is not scientific, it was just the people in the room, but it gives you an idea of where people thought things should be. And you can see the off-road is much more in the rural areas, whereas the paths were much more in the village areas. So one of the ideas that came out of this group was the idea of using the bicycle software Strava Metro to actually track where people are and generate data that could be used for planning and grant applications. And we just learned that they now have a CO2 feature built into that. So one of the people earlier was talking about, the Department of Transportation earlier was talking about having things that were environmentally sustainable. So in applying for grants, being able to demonstrate the CO2 that's being saved and maybe the air quality improvement because of that by people bicycling instead of driving to a place. There's data within this system that you can use. So thinking about ways to access this data, if there's other software that people use to track their, I know there's different walking, Apple steps and whatever, like looking for ways where you could track where people were really going and how many miles they were really walking or riding. Those kinds of things could be utilized, particularly in a more centralized geographic area where you could just get a data that you could really move with. So we would encourage you to look for ways to get some of that real data and not just hypothetical data. That's easier than counting. I know you guys do counting, but that's hard. So one of the innovative things I really wanted to share with this group was the neighborhood sidewalk program. So in the town of Manlius, we developed a neighborhood sidewalk program, which provides a mechanism for sidewalks outside of a village or a city. So you guys probably know, most people don't, it's really hard to have a sidewalk that's not within a village or a city because you have to form a sidewalk district and sidewalks are very expensive. So this provided a mechanism whereby a neighborhood could make a sidewalk district without an expense to them on the front end. We would pay the engineering fees to develop the map plan and report, form the district, and then they would simply be responsible for paying the annual tax for the sidewalk bond that built the sidewalk. But this way, there's no tax until after it's been demonstrated that sidewalk is feasible, that all of the surveying and all that stuff is already done. So the families that live along in the sidewalk district are not responsible for fronting a bunch of money for a sidewalk that may never come if it's determined not to be feasible in the end. So this was a really great innovation that the town of Manlius, not me, somebody else came up with. So this was a terrific program. I would encourage you to check that out if you're looking for an area outside of a village that is kind of built up and would be appropriate for sidewalk development. So the neighborhood that selected this was Enders Road. This is there's an elementary and a middle school on one end of Enders Road, and the high school is on the other end of Enders Road. So it's a very, it's a very logical place for pedestrian traffic, and the school is definitely a motivating factor. The other places where people have talked about doing the sidewalk program were next to the elementary schools in Fayetteville, the Emmott Road and FM. So those were definitely motivators for why people would want to pay to belong to a sidewalk district. But this is a real-time data. This was just last week. The blue dots have signed on to participate. So this is a real thing that could really happen, and we would love to be a demonstration for other communities in terms of how you could develop a sidewalk district outside of a village or city. We're also fortunate in Fayetteville and Manlius, not so much Manoa, I know the central person is here, but we are fortunate with good bus service for here. We understand that Centro is exploring the idea of having e-bikes and scooters stationed at some selected sites, and we're thinking Town Center, the Fayetteville Mall would be one of those sites where you could pick up a scooter. So we're hoping to sort of include more active transportation in conjunction with the Centro route. People right now can certainly do a regular bicycle and put it on the front and ride the bike into Syracuse. So, so those are all things that we wanted to do. We do want to mention that in the process of our comprehensive plan, we still would like more neighborhood, or, you know, not necessarily door to door, but more neighborhood stops where older people or people with limited mobility could access the service. So, you know, fixed route transportation only goes so far. It's good the way it is, but more could be done in the future. And it sounds like, you know, you guys are working on that in the city, and maybe some of that could come out to the suburbs, you know, over time. So overall, you guys are pretty familiar with comprehensive planning. So all of this data from all the focus groups and the study sessions and the listening sessions all rolled into this community profile, which was developed into the vision, goals, objectives, and action steps. So these are what we came up with. So on the green side were general plan objectives that overlap with active mobility. So it was the idea that we would want to have a walkable community. We wanted that connectivity piece that I mentioned earlier, that these were all things that we knew we wanted. We also wanted the comprehensive plan also focused on reducing our carbon footprint and having a sustainable community. So those were all things. The other things that we mentioned that I think, you know, relate to this is recreation and tourism. That, you know, we could become, that if you are very walkable or very bikeable, that people could come there for that purpose. So you would actually get some additional business at gift shops or restaurants, you know, due to having good biking infrastructure. And then that there was the opportunity to share with the villages. Specifically with regard to active transportation, we went back to this idea, we really need some community education around sharing. We wanted to develop and maintain some infrastructure. So some of this was around things like air filling stations for tires and things like that, that there might be some, the same way we're doing, which is actually number 5, the EV plug-in stations, like maybe there could be some bicycle stations somewhere, you know, where people would know if they were doing a long trail ride, that there were places where they could refresh with whatever they might need. So that might be water, that might be air, you know, whatever the kinds of things they might need that. And then traffic mitigation strategies. So I know we've been working on crosswalks pretty aggressively in the area. And that was another area where if there were ways to look at making it safer for pedestrians and cyclists to cross over busy trailways, and then being prepared for autonomous vehicles. That was another thing. So if we end up with autonomous vehicles, we're afraid that might be increasing the danger to pedestrians and cyclists as opposed to the reverse. So everybody says they're going to be super safe, but the people on the side of the road are not yet confident of that. So we wanted to kind of consider that, because comprehensive planning is trying to be really long-term. And I know you're just starting your 5-year plan, you know, so in the end of 5 years, will there be bus drivers, or will the buses be driving themselves, you know? So just trying to be aware of what we need to be thinking about. So that was my overview for how we tried to integrate active mobility into the comprehensive planning process. And I'm very eager to hear Danielle's part about the connectivity, and then we can take questions at the end.
Perfect. Sarah, thank you so much. That was great. Really happy to hear all of that and get some insight into your process, and hopefully share that with other communities as well too, which is fantastic. Thanks for joining us today. So what I'm going to talk about briefly, let me just make sure I can share my screen here. Oops, just a second. Great. Okay, I am going to share my screen and go back to my PowerPoint. Okay. Oh, of course, brought me back to the beginning. Sorry about that. Okay, so SMTC has just, shouldn't say just begun. We started in the fall working on the villages of Fayetteville, Manlius, and Manoa bicycle pedestrian connection study. That is a mouthful. we had a different name for it at the outset of the study, but we wanted to make sure we listed each of the villages within the town of Manlius to make it clear that it was we're working on trying to make some connections. So this study actually the idea for this study actually came from the village of Fayetteville, and they approached us and they said, hey, we'd like to take a look at evaluating and improving the bicycle and pedestrian network and connections and access through the greater Fayetteville area, meaning the villages of Manoa, Fayetteville, and Manlius, linked to neighboring parks and trails. For example, the Empire State Trail, Green Lake State Park. There's some other local parks there as well. See if we can identify some safe on-road bike routes and off-road where needed or necessary, and then work on increasing bicycle and pedestrian trips in the area of the town of Manlius here. So this is actually a consultant-based study. We're working with Creighton Manning on this. And one of the things that we've been working with Creighton Manning, SMTC has been working with Creighton Manning and the villages and the town of Manlius to come up with, we've gathered a lot of existing conditions information. There have been a lot of previous studies that have been completed on some of the different roadways and trails that you can see highlighted in purple here on the left of the screen. And I'll get to that map shortly and explain what that is. But one of the things we wanted to do early on in the study was conduct an online survey. And we started that in January, and it closed, I think it was around February 12th of earlier this year, where we spoke about, we basically just wanted to get an idea of who wanted to make some of these connections between these different municipalities, and what kind of roads or off-road areas people are walking and biking in now, and where they want to bike or walk in the future. So I'm going to go through the questions that we asked as part of that survey in just a minute. And I will come back to this slide, but we do have the first public meeting for that project coming up on Thursday, April 11th. In the village, we're going to be using the auditorium at the Village of Manlius facility there on Archie Albanese Drive. And the meeting will start at 6, run till about 8 o'clock, It's primarily going to be open house, but we will have a brief presentation there around 6:15 or so probably. And if folks miss that, that's okay. We'll have boards where we can interact with everybody around the room. So let me I'm going to just grab the survey really quick. And I don't want to steal too much thunder from the upcoming public meeting. And also the consultant is still working on summarizing everything. So let me stop this share. And then what I'm going to do is share the questions that we asked as part of, let's see here, as part of our initial outreach. So let me open this and share screen. Oh. Okay. I just want to make sure everybody see that I've got the survey up. Okay, just want to make sure here. So again, like I said, back in January, and we ran it, I think about 3 to 4 weeks, maybe 5 weeks. We asked a series of questions, and what we did is we asked the town of Manlius and the 3 villages, along with, we have a group of folks working on our study advisory committee that represent the the town and the villages, along with a couple of our member agencies, which are some road owners in the area, including New York State Department of Transportation and County Department of Transportation. And so we asked them to share the word about the study, or about the survey that we had out we distributed the link through email, through social media, so through Facebook and maybe Instagram in one case, also through the news. We had the Eagle Bulletin shared a nice little article for us with a link to the survey as well. And in the end, we did get about 300, I think close to 360 responses, which is really, really good. And the one tidbit I will share right now is over 90% of the respondents are from the town of Manlius or within the 3 villages. So we did get a really good group of folks to respond. So I'm just going to share briefly what some of the questions were. I won't take up too much time here. Click on those. So we have a little introduction here that explains what the project is about. And we asked folks to share where they lived, whether it's in one of the villages, elsewhere in the town of Manlius, or elsewhere in the region. And we asked for zip code, how many vehicles folks have access to on a regular basis, and do you ever walk or bike for short trips we define short trips as less than 3 miles from your home to places like stores, parks, the school, etc. And how often do you do that? And we put a little note here. For example, have you ever chosen or decided to walk instead of drive to a local park? So how often is that happening? And then what we do, the next 2 questions were about the primary roadways that link the villages and recreational destinations in the study area. So it's going to be a little hard to see on my on the next map, but we did have a little plus sign that we noted next to a corridor or a large segment that we have looked at as part of a prior planning effort or has been looked at in the past, where potential pedestrian or bicycle improvements were identified. But we didn't want to exclude that from folks telling us where they were interested in walking or biking. Let's see. So yes, and I also listed here, we mentioned the study team is aware of the plans and we're tasked with complementing the work by investigating additional opportunities, not revising or replacing, because we do have some really great information from those prior planning efforts. So again, this map, for anyone that's able to come to the public meeting, you'll be able to see this much better. Again, this was an online survey, so you could zoom in and check everything out, which I can do a little bit now here. But the corridors that we started with were mentioned specifically by some of them were mentioned specifically by the village of Fayetteville, who are the folks that approached us about the project. And then we've listed these specific connection corridors here, and they're quite long. So if there was a location that you walked or were interested in walking in, we wanted to hear about it, and you would just click on that, or click in the next slide here on which. Excuse me. So question 5 and 6 went with that map, and we asked which of the roadways do you currently use to walk or bike to destinations in the area? So you could click on anything that applied there. So all of those roads in purple, anything was fair game. Or if you don't walk or bike on any of the roadways listed above, you would click on that. And then 5A, if you indicated that you never walk or bike on the roadways listed, why is that the case? And then we asked folks to select 3 roadways they would like to see enhanced to support better bike and pedestrian connections in the area. And that could be any sort of enhancement, bike lanes, sidewalks, crosswalks, just any sort of improvement. And so again, we listed those same roadways. And then if you indicated that you do not think there should be bike or ped connections, would you like to explain why? And if I go back to question 6, that very last checkbox there, I never walk or bike on any of the roadways. So that was an option too. And then question 7, are there any corridors that we should focus on that aren't listed? If yes, which additional areas should we look at? And then what else would you like us to know about bike and pedestrian connections in the area? And then we also had an email option to share your email if you'd like to stay informed about updates to the project. And so through the survey, we have several email addresses that will in the very near future, early next week, be getting some information about that upcoming public meeting. We'll have a flyer put together and we'll share all of that. So I'm going to stop sharing that. I'm going to go back to my PowerPoint real quick here. Again, we have that public meeting coming up, so I don't want to, the consultant will be sharing the results of that survey, which, and they'll go into a lot more detail. And then what they have also started, in addition to getting some input from the folks that will be at the public meeting, we've got some very initial suggested ideas that we want to run by the public as far as what do you think of this type of facility and where would it make sense? So we'll have those coming up shortly. Let me, apparently I can't talk and press share screen at the same time. Okay. Can everyone see my PowerPoint again? Yeah, I just need to change this to the one slide. Oh, of course. All right, so with that, again, I just want to remind folks we've got that public meeting coming up Thursday, April 11th. And there'll be some additional emails going out to our broader emailing list from SMTC to remind folks about that meeting. And we'll also have some information on the SMTC Facebook page and our Instagram page, and as well as our website. And then we'll be asking the municipalities within the town to share information about the public meeting as well. So I believe that is what I wanted to say about our project so far, in advance of that public meeting coming up very soon. And I think we can actually now move on to questions and answers. So yes.
Danielle, I'd just like to introduce William Nicholson, who is a counselor with the town of Manlius and was advisory to both of these programs. So
yes,
wanted people to say hi to William, and that he will be, I think, at the meeting on the 11th if people want to talk more to him. So
absolutely, yes. And actually, William is on our study advisory committee. Yes, for the villages of Fayetteville, Manlius, and Manoa bicycle and pedestrian connections study. So thank you, William, for being here today too. I saw you pop in.
Yeah, thanks. It's a wonderful opportunity, and we'll do everything we can to pack the room at the public.
Great.
For sure.
Perfect. Awesome. Thank you. And so, okay, I think Megan, you put here, if you've got any questions for us or for our guest speaker today. And before I forget, Sarah, thank you again for taking the time to be with us today and share the information about the Town of Manlius Comprehensive Plan. It was really great to hear all of that. And I also want to thank our member agencies for being here as well before I forget.
my pleasure. Thank you.
Thanks. So let's see. Megan, have you had any questions come in that I haven't seen?
No, nobody has their hands raised. I know we had a few questions before the meeting asking just about plans for what kind of pedestrian safety or bicycle safety plans are happening in the area. So I think we covered that with all of our updates and the member agency updates. But
yes.
Yeah, if anyone else has other questions, just click on reactions and raise hand, and I will send you a request to unmute.
Perfect. And look around too and see if anyone's got questions. Thank you, David Long.
While we're waiting, I'll just put in another plug for our MTP process. If you haven't had a chance to check out that website, I'll put it in the chat again. We have a short video there that describes our MTP, looks at trends in the past 20 or so years and starts kind of setting the stage for what we're thinking about with that process. Give it a watch. I think it's only about 5 minutes. It's entertaining. And then take the survey. The survey link is right at the top of that MTP page. So we really want to get your input on that. I think most of you, if you're on this call, are already on our mailing list. But if you're not, I will also put our newsletter sign up in the chat. We have a hard copy newsletter that is at the printers right now. So watch your mailbox. We publish that hard copy one a couple times a year, and then we do a email newsletter about every other month. So sign up for that list or tell your friends and family to sign up for that as well.
That's great. I have to say, looking through, Sarah, I'm really glad that you shared the slide that showed all of your outreach that the town worked on. That's really impressive, especially given the time frame that you were beginning to do all that work and trying to learn how to navigate. Well, at least for me anyway, trying to learn how to navigate and use Zoom and products like that, because that was new. But I thought that was really impressive and really important to share that. Not just because it's a lot of work and you're able to do that, but just to show other communities they can do that too. So I thought that was fantastic.
An advantage of doing the Zoom was that the sessions are recorded. And so it was possible for people to catch up if they discovered that the plan was happening after it was already, well along, they could watch a couple videos and get caught up. So I do think that there's an advantage of doing some recorded sessions. Actually, just like Megan mentioned, the little video that goes with the MTP. I think people are now more comfortable doing that and having access to things in an asynchronous way. So we found that to be valuable. There was a thing in the chat about using Fitbit also. I think I don't know what the permissions would be to get that data, but that would be another one where there's probably a lot of data available that if that was to be possible.
Oh, yeah. Hi, Sarah. I was looking at the same comment from Lois too. And I wanted to make mention that Don Jordan at Onondaga County Planning was very helpful. What Strava Metro provided to us was not bounded by our municipal boundary. It was Onondaga County data. So he had to do a lot of work on it to sort of extract, what was in that data set that was part of the town of Manlius, but it's not really a complete picture of what's going on there. So it's just kind of an indicator of what's possible if we could get better data. And then the other thing that came through in the discussions around using that data is that it's, again, active user provided data. It's not really reading real-time usage of the roadways. It's really people who are subscribed to the application and use it for particular purposes. So it's still very useful, but it's very incomplete.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm just going to chime in, I guess. That makes sense because a lot of the times you're turning on like your device to track like the workout that you're doing, not necessarily the day-to-day trips. I always forget to do that on my Fitbit if I'm just doing a commute ride. So are you taking like active suggestions for like, and so you mentioned something about things that might be more like bike friendly, encouraging. When is that feedback window, what you're accepting like comments on that, or have you already collected? I kind of missed that.
Are you talking to me with SMTC about the town the bicycle and pedestrian connection study that we're working on, or are you speaking to the town of? Oh, okay, just make sure.
Yeah. Because there was comments about making it be more of like the long-term like pedestrian like bike tourism almost and things like that. So that kind of piqued my interest.
Yeah, so we don't, so to answer your basic question, we don't have anything specifically set up now. We were planning to actually use the study that Danielle is doing as our baseline to move forward. on places where we could then, because in order, the study doesn't make the road improvement, it recommends a road improvement. So what we would do is take that study and then make recommendations for actually spending money to improve something after the study was completed. And also, if that survey shows another road that people are interested in that wasn't one of the purple ones, that would be interesting for us to know that as well.
Yes, Sarah, thank you for making that clarification. Yeah, that our study is a planning study, and anything that the recommendations that will come out of the SMTC study that we're working on for the town in the 3 villages, those are recommendations, and it will be up to the town and the villages to determine which ones they want, if and which ones they would want to move forward with, and then they would then have to work with the if it happens to be a road or particular property, they would have to work with the road owner to then move forward with that particular recommendation, or maybe something or another road that ends up being mentioned as part of that as part of the outcome of that study.
Sarah, I had a question about the sidewalk, the small neighborhood program that you guys are working on. I'm trying to get with the Enders Road neighborhood. Is it a program where everyone has to, within that neighborhood, has buy-in, or is there a certain threshold you have to reach in order to kind of get that moving?
We use the threshold of 60% to be the number, because you're not going to get 100%. But yeah. And the sidewalk, just to be clear, the sidewalk is not around the whole neighborhood. It's just along Enders Road. So we're not talking about miles and miles and miles of sidewalk. Okay. It's like 3 miles of sidewalk, which is expensive enough. And all of those neighborhoods feed out to that. And so they would still walk on it.
Okay. Yeah, no, I thought that was just a really interesting program. And I know a lot of other communities are probably interested in how to get something like that started. And there's it, especially along those kind of main busier thoroughfares where walking the street doesn't feel comfortable.
Yeah, so Councilor Elaine Benton kind of put that together and has been working with the neighbors there to, they were actually taking petitions around to collect signatures. That's how we're getting the information.
Again, if any other questions, just raise your hand. I'm also going to put one more link in the chat. Lots of things for you to fill out, but we do have a meeting evaluation form. If people would fill that out, that would be great, especially if you have a suggestion for a topic or a guest speaker for our next forum on active transportation. We try to do these meetings about quarterly. So would that be March, April, May, next one maybe in June-ish? So yeah, if there's somebody that you'd like to hear from or a suggestion for a topic, you can put that on the form, or just let us know how you're doing if you enjoy this or if you don't. Bren, yep, let me just
I think I can unmute myself.
Yep, yeah, you can now.
I just wanted to say, I also found the comp plan conversation about manliness very interesting. And I know that you talked about the transportation options and potential bus options for the town. That certainly makes sense. And that's what Centro is also looking at. You know, we are really aware of the fact that a 40-foot bus is not the appropriate answer to all transportation issues. So that's why we expanded into the bike share side of things. We are also doing a program in Rome. We started with an on-demand service, which is where folks can get on their app or call and have a bus come to their street, the end of their block, and pick them up. And it's more of a flex route option. So that will be coming to Syracuse. I don't want to say soon, but sometime in the future. We just started it. We're 3 weeks in Rome, but have really seen great results there and are excited that once we feel comfortable with how that's working, we'll be able to then roll it out into our other properties.
So Bren, thank you for sharing that. I had heard about that program in Rome and we are very interested in that, but obviously you need a level of volume to make it work out. So I would love to see how a couple of those pilots work out and when it might be feasible for us to bring it to our communities.
Agreed. We'll get there.
I put that link to Centro's website to the move page in the chat as well. So there's a lot of great information there if people want to take a look at that.
Awesome. Thanks, Megan.
Any other last questions?
I'm not seeing any.
No?
I do want to, before we sign off here, I do want to thank Deputy Supervisor Sarah Bollinger for being here today, and also to William Nicholson. Thank you also for being here today and being on our study advisory committee for the project that we're working on in the town. And we are looking forward to continuing to working with you both. And thank you very much. Thanks for your time, and to our member agencies for the updates as well.
Thank you. This was very interesting.